Our prayer this morning is by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Amen. Our reading this morning is by Nancy Schaefer. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? What shall we use, and how is it in the first place you've come to be torn? Come sit. Come tell me. We will find a way to mend you. I would offer you so much, sweet soul. This banana, sliced in rounds of palest yellow atop hot cereal. Or these raisins scattered through it, if you'd rather. Would offer cellos in the background, singing melodies Vivaldi heard and wrote for us to keep. Would hold out to you everything colored blue or lavender or light green. All of this I would offer you, sweet soul, all of it, or any piece of it, might mend you. I would offer you, sweet soul, this chair by the window, this sunlight on the floor, and the cat asleep in it. I would offer you my silence, my presence, all this love I have, and my sorrow. You've become torn. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? With these, I think, gently we can begin. We will mend you with a rocking chair, some raisins, a cat, a field of lavender beginning now to bloom. We will mend you with songs remembered entirely the first time ever they are heard. We will mend you with pieces of your own sweet self, sweet soul, with what you've taught from the very beginning. In 1998, I was a senior in high school. That's not supposed to be funny. We're just setting the date. My parents took turns driving me to look at colleges. When I went to visit Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, it was my mother's turn. One Saturday morning, we hit the road early, aiming for a midday tour of the school, and then another half-hour's drive to my grandmother's house to celebrate her 75th birthday. When we got in the car, my mother remarked that we had about a quarter of a tank of gas, but since we were eager to get on the road, we decided to put some miles in before stopping. The gauge registered empty as we exited Route 495 in Franklin and pulled into a gas station. That's when my mother started looking for her pocketbook. "Do you see my purse?" she asked me. I looked in the back seat. Nothing. We got out and looked in the trunk. Nothing. She had left it at home. So here we were, an hour away from home, with no gas and no money. And this was before cell phones, of course. We looked at each other and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Rather than panic, my mother thought of solutions. Well, she said, I do have a mobile credit card, and even though I don't have it with me, maybe if we get to a mobile gas station, they will be able to access our account. How much money do you have? She asked me. Between the two of us, we had $1.75 in our pockets. Feeling optimistic, or at least trying to, we pumped $1.75 worth of gas at the current station and drove up the road to the nearest mobile station. There, my mother went inside to tell the two attendants of our plight. Unfortunately, they said, they could not verify my mother's credit card, but they did offer her a form to fill out, which would allow her to pump a tank full of gas in exchange for her leaving something of value with them. Do you have anything of value with you? They asked her. Well, she said, my second born is in the car. They preferred her Timex watch. She pumped the gas, and we drove away feeling a renewed faith in human kindness. As we neared the Mass Pike, though, a new dilemma presented itself. Kate, my mother exclaimed, we can't take the Mass Pike. We don't have any money for the tolls. She pulled over to the side of the road and took out the map. We took a few minutes to figure out a new route and began again. We got to Wesleyan about 5 minutes before the tour was to begin. As we approached the entrance to the admissions office, we eyed through the window a delicious array of food spread out on a table. Look, Kate, there's food, my mom exclaimed. We had not eaten all day. Shh, Mom, I said, hoping no one had heard her. Parents are perpetually embarrassing when you are a teenage girl. When we entered the building, the hallway was crowded with huge, muscly teenage boys. Turns out it was a recruitment weekend for potential freshman football players, and the food was for them. Bummer. Mom and I settled for a cup of water and a tour in the rain. Now fully drenched and hungry, we drove to Madison, where my grandmother lives. She welcomed us and listened to our tale of woe. I'd love to take you out for dinner, my mom told her, but we don't have any money. My grandmother graciously loaned us the money to treat her to dinner and to get my mother's watch out of hock. We have joked about my mom's second-born being in the car for 20 years now. It never stops being funny to us. Probably, though, that is because the story is well behind us, and we can see the humor in it. In that moment, we weren't really laughing. There's something that happens when you see that little red gas pump light go on in your car, reminding you that you really should have filled up when you still had that quarter tank left. Your heart sinks. But then a certain calm comes over you as you remember that the reminder light comes on not when your tank is bone dry, but when you still have a few miles left to go. Miles used, hopefully, to navigate to the nearest gas station. So what do we do when our spiritual tanks are running on empty? How do we make it to the next refill when we ourselves are running on fumes, not just our car? The Urban Dictionary is a crowdsourced online dictionary for slang words and phrases. It defines the term running on empty as the beginning of depression. Their longer definition reads, When you feel like the world is just out to get you, nothing is going right in your life, and you're on the verge of insanity or killing yourself. Despite all that, the entry says, you still go through your daily routine, holding on to an ounce of hope that things will be better one day. Then you are running on empty. It's a little more dramatic than what I was thinking, but still fairly accurate. When we are running on empty, our energy is low, our fuses are short, and the bucket we use for holding hope seems to have a hole in it. When we are running on empty, we have trouble connecting with others, with our own worth, and with joy. When we are running on empty, we don't take pleasure in our work. We don't see how much we are contributing to the world with our presence. We just feel so deeply how much the world is asking of us. And it feels like too much. All of us will have this experience at some point or another. Labor Day weekend in Provincetown may have more than a few of us feeling this way. But the thing we need to remember is that the little red light goes on not when our tanks are bone dry, but when we still have a few miles left to get to the station. So when we begin to feel this running on empty feeling, it's important that we use what little energy we have left in ways that will ensure that we can refuel and not burn out. That ill-fated college trip with my mother seems to offer some wisdom here. I mean, we survived relatively unscathed after all. Looking back, we did 3 things that helped us to make it. We pooled our resources, we were flexible, and we accepted help from others. The first thing we did when we realized our dilemma was not to panic, but to gather our resources. And even though the sum total of our resources was $1.75, it did an important thing, which was to put us back in control. So when you are feeling utterly depleted, think about an assessment of your resources. It might be money, but it also might be yoga, a friend you can call, a favorite meal that you can cook, a walk in nature. What has helped you in the past when you have been feeling low? Do you remember? Now is the time to call on those things. Wendell Berry writes, "When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free." Perhaps the most healing thing of all, accessible to all of us equally, is the peace of wild things, time outside, time in nature. We've all experienced the healing power of nature, but beyond the anecdotal, there is actually some serious science behind this. Maybe some of you heard the PBS NewsHour segment the other day about how doctors are increasingly prescribing time in nature alongside their other prescriptions. Why nature is beneficial is not entirely clear, they said, but some suspect that natural stimuli, the swaying trees, rushing water, and singing birds, might reset our fight or flight response, which is too often switched into overdrive by the stresses of modern life. That rest, in turn, gives the body's psychological, digestive, and immune systems the break they need to function normally. Nushin Razani, a primary care doctor in Oakland, California, shared that if you take an urban adult into a forest, within 15 minutes, you see improvements in cortisol, blood pressure, and heart rate. She also said that people who live in green areas live longer. In Colorado, a group called Nature RX has created a spoof commercial that mimics those terrible drug ads. As people frolic on the screen, the narrator says, "Nature can reduce cynicism, meaninglessness, anal retentiveness, and murderous rage." Air Force veteran Virginia Vincent has been prescribed nature for her PTSD and has found that it helps. "Trees are forgiving," she says. "The grass doesn't judge you. The grass doesn't care how squirrely you seem to be that day. It doesn't care." So first, take stock of your resources. Don't forget nature, the peace of wild things. Also, raisins in hot cereal, rocking chairs, lavender. Second, be flexible. Once my mom and I had figured out that first problem about the gas, we still couldn't proceed on like everything was back to normal. We still had no money. When you are running on empty, you are functioning with decreased capacity. You can't expect the same things of yourself. You have to shift your expectations. This is not going to be the trip you thought you'd be taking. Instead of the Mass Pike, you might have to take a slower road. And so it is with our spirits. We might not be able to produce as much during this time. We probably can't accomplish all the things we want to in a day. We might have to aim for just one or two, like getting out of bed and taking a shower, not yelling at anyone, not crying in public. Private is fine, it doesn't count. When you are creating this new map for yourself, try to avoid comparing it to the one you had originally planned. And try to avoid comparing it to those around you. The football players are on a different journey. They may have catered lunches and specialty tours. Don't worry about it. It's not for you, and that is fine. The more you compare yourself to your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your family, the more upset you will become. It's not a helpful exercise when you are running on empty. Just keep your focus on creating your new roadmap and sticking to it. And finally, accept the help of others. We would not have made it that weekend without the kind gas station attendants or my grandmother. We needed their help, and we took it. You may find yourself needing the help of others. Take it. Aaron Henry wrote a piece for Huffington Post in 2011 "Hi," she said, "my name is Erin. I'm a recovering, I don't need any help person. I've been uncomfortable receiving and asking for help as long as I can remember," she says. "My whole life, I've been a person who thought I was being strong by doing everything on my own, even if it meant doing it with struggle." That all changed for her when, unpacking from her 9th move in a row done by herself, she suddenly couldn't do it anymore. Curled in my own little sobbing pile, among piles of stuff that needed to either be assembled or stuffed into the things that needed to be assembled, I finally reached for my phone, she said, and dialed a lifeline. It's not that nobody had offered to come and help me. It was that I had turned them all down because I didn't want to feel I owed anyone anything. And I constantly needed to prove to myself that I was completely self-sufficient. But that day I dialed the phone, and within hours my friend was there with his drill and furniture assembly skills, whistling away and piecing my bed together in minutes when I had struggled with it for hours. He noticed my puffy eyes and my smeared mascara and asked why I hadn't called sooner. The next night, she says, I called a girlfriend back that had offered to help me arrange my new closet. And to my surprise, it actually made things easier. And she was happy to do it. Who knew? Instantly, my stress level went down, and I felt good knowing I had people in my life who would give to me so generously. The next time you are hesitant to ask for something when you truly need it, Erin says, consider the thought that you are contributing to the cyclical beauty of give and receive. Give someone the chance to feel how rewarding it feels to do something nice for someone else. Fast forward 20 years from that ill-fated college tour trip. It is August 2019. Just the other day. My mother is driving back from a singing workshop in Western Mass when her radio stops working. Then all of her dashboard lights begin to go out one by one. She quickly calculates her options, pull to the side of the road or try to make it off to the next exit. She decides to go for the exit and miraculously coasts into a mobile station just as her car sputters and dies. Remarkably, this is the same mobile station. She is not out of gas this time, but her battery is dead. She does have her purse this time, but not her AAA card, which is at home in a different purse. We really need to make this woman a go bag. AAA says that they will send a tow truck, but they will not honor her AAA plus standing, which allows her to be towed anywhere rather than just to the nearest mechanic within 3 miles. For that, they say, she must have her AAA card present. A man getting coffee overhears her distressed conversation with the AAA dispatcher, takes out his own AAA plus card, puts it on the counter, and taps it with a nod. "I've found my card," my mother says. And reads out the number. The kind man then stays with my mother for almost an hour while she waits for the tow truck, in case they too are serious about the card needing to be present. She tells him the story about running out of gas and the only thing of value on her being her second-born. He laughs. So perhaps the last lesson of running on empty is maintain your sense of humor. Number 1, pool your resources. Number 2, be flexible. Number 3, accept help from others. Number 4, laugh, even if it is at yourself. Remember, when that little red light goes on, it does not mean that your tank is completely empty. You still have a few miles left to refuel if you use those miles wisely. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.